Hi there, this is Terry from Bonsai Tree. I'm on a new dig site. My plan is just to come out to the site and take a look around and see what sort of trees are available here, and which I'm going to be showing you. So the kind of criteria that I would be looking for, what you might also want to take into consideration when you are out on a dig. And then also this sort of preparation will also enable me to be better prepared next time when I come to site, both in the tools that I'll need to bring with me and also what I need to prepare at home to receive the trees. So I've stopped next to a tree, an olive. It's a nice piece of dead wood that's been eaten by termites just underneath it. It's a good inspiration to pick up pieces of dead wood when you're in the veld, because it gives you a lot of ideas for when you're carving. The purpose that I wanted to stop here is that a lot of the times people, when they go to dig, they will look at material and decide then obviously if the effort of digging it out is worth it. I think sometimes we maybe just get a bit over eager and we just dig the first thing that we see, but let's assume that that's not the case with yourself. So what is it that you're looking for? This tree has a fair amount of bark on it, which is quite pleasing. It's probably a fairly old tree, but you can see that this tree has been to some extent sheltered from the elements, and it's probably had a fair amount of access to a fair amount of water over its years. So it's quite a young tree. What I would be looking for, although it has got a fair amount of taper in it from the base, which is a very important aspect also to consider, because older trees tend to have a more bulbous base, and through experience I found that trees like that collect better than trees that don't have that kind of a base, because they're typically younger trees. When you're walking around in the veld, you should always keep an eye out for species that you perhaps didn't target, such as this pine that's growing in a pocket of a rock, so suggests that it could be collected. So walking along, I just stumbled upon this very old olive. I'm sure, I have no idea of how old it would be, but you can see the size of the base. It's massive, growing out of a rock, so it would be very difficult to collect it. A lot of portions of it that have died back, in fact. I'm going to explore a little bit more, but this is very characterful material, just a little bit difficult, challenging to collect. Here's a great example of some very old deadwood. This tree has died, in fact, but you can see it would have been fairly old when it did die. And so when out in nature, it's always good to observe how deadwood is, the characters of deadwood, and then you can try and emulate that in your creations as well. One of the other things that you want to look for when you're collecting or deciding on what tree to collect is that sometimes you'll find sort of genetic variations in leaf size. You can see this olive leaf is very small compared to a much larger, more typical olive leaf, and so obviously it would be preferable to collect something that has a smaller leaf. Obviously, it's going to depend on the tree what you have in mind, the size of the tree, but certainly smaller trees would be better suited to smaller leaves like this. Walking past this very old olive, and it's dead, but I just wanted to show you how magnificent the branch structure is, because you can actually see see it all now because there's no leaves on it. And you can also see, I want you to appreciate the fact that it's a multi-trunked tree. It's not a single trunk like most olives that you see as bonsai. And this is in fact the kind of style that I like to emulate in my olive bonsai. Well, at least that's what the style that appeals to me very much at the moment. But yeah, as I say, I just want you to appreciate the angles of the branches as they emanate from the trunk, how they stretch outward towards the sunlight. This is actually quite a shaded area. There's a lot of other pines and things around it. I assume that the pines probably grew here after this olive germinated, because this must be quite an old tree, in fact. But yeah, it's wonderful to be out in nature. I think this is one of the things that bonsai does for us, is it takes us out into nature and we become far more observant of the way that trees grow. We should allow that to inspire us when we're styling our trees. I've come across another olive which might be quite tempting to dig out at first glance. It's got some interest. It's got a nice flare at the base, and to me it holds an appeal because it has multi-trunks. The problem with this particular tree though is that it lacks a certain sign or signs of maturity. The bark, although there is fissured bark at the very base of the tree, the stems, the trunks, are devoid of any bark. So I wouldn't be keen on digging something like this. The other thing is that the branch or the trunks are completely straight, and very much without any kind of taper, which presents a problem because you need to then determine how you are going to introduce some taper and interest in the trunks. Cutting it back to stubs, of course, is an option. But then you need to grow new foliage pads, and then to get some kind of a logical transition from a thick trunk to then the structural branches which you are now growing is going to take quite some time to do. A lot of sacrifice branches. That is, of course, if you're going to do that. But I do notice a lot of styling of olives. It seems to be, to me at least, rushed. It doesn't seem like enough time is taken to build the structure of the tree correctly, like you would do for a deciduous tree. The same approach should apply to yamadori as it would to trees that you are field growing, where you are developing taper in your structural branches from your trunk, or originating from your trunk, and then building the ramification and the canopy from that, instead of rushing that interior structure of the tree to start building ramifications so you can get nice looking full pads. So yeah, I wouldn't, this area to dig from would probably be quite easy. It's a lot of open ground here, so you probably find if you dig the soil out that you will get a couple of just long running roots, which you can just chop off, of course. But it'll be pretty easy to dig the tree out. There's quite a lot of open space around me here, and but I think you need to be, and this is the purpose of today's outing and adventure, was really just to see what is available, and look at the trees, consider them. You know, it's when you're out in the field, you can get carried away very easily and dig things that you might regret later on. Firstly, when you start digging a tree, it obviously is going to take some exertion and some time to dig it out, and then you have to carry it off the mountain or carry it off the felt wherever you dug it, and so you need to make sure that not only is it going to be worth all that effort, but then you're also going to have to keep this tree alive for you know, for as long as, because it's growing perfectly well. Yeah, it's not as though this area is going to be developed for construction. It's not being cleared for any deforestation or other purposes. So this tree is fine. Yeah, you need to have a reason why you are digging it out. If it is for bonsai, then you're obviously intending, you have a plan, you have a vision for what you want to do with the tree, and so you need to see that through. Otherwise, you've essentially killed the tree, potentially. Yeah, you may sell it to somebody else, but you know, if the tree has inherent faults, you know, it's maybe better just to keep looking for something that really does appeal to you and really pops at you, and sort of demands your attention, and that it excites you. This tree does not excite me, and so therefore it's something that I would give a miss.